Welcome to The Film Board, the movie conversation podcast reviewing the latest releases that you've seen and want to talk about. My name is Ocean, and I am the host of the Film Board podcast. And on this episode, we're talking about Uncharted.
Hey, kid. A little young for a bartender, aren't you?
A little old for prom, aren't you?
Everything in here. Why the map?
It's the biggest treasure that's never been found.
5 billion, easy.
But it's just a story.
I beg to differ.
500 years ago, my family found the world's biggest fortune, then was betrayed. People have been searching for it all in vain.
Both you turn your keys clockwise at the same time. Thanks a lot. You almost got me killed.
Clockwise, Sully!
Well, it was 50-50, so I made a guess.
Clearly.
But the voyage was not just about gold. It was something much more valuable. This cross has a very tragic history. So much blood.
I'm pretty sure he just threatened to kill me. Oh, this is gonna suck!
Welcome, everybody. Today I am chatting with JJ and Pete to get their thoughts on this movie so we can share them with all of you. Welcome, JJ.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Welcome, Pete.
It is great to be here. Thank you, Ocean. I'm glad to be talking about this movie.
Why don't we just set the bar real quick? So without diving too far into the movie, why don't you tell us what you already knew about the movie and what expectations you had going in, JJ?
So I knew very little about the movie. I knew about the adaptation from the game, and I knew how sort of relevant the game was to the world, especially in the Sony PlayStation world. I had never played the game. I knew about some of its gorgeous and legendary set pieces, which I've seen recreated in the film as well. But what I expected coming into the movie, again, not necessarily knowing that much stuff, is I expected something that was going to be really fun, easily digestible, and actually, checking the rating, something that was going to be good for my kids, which seems a little weird. But we are making the transition. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. We are making the transition from that sort of all animated world to coming to superhero, all these kind of things. So for them to come to a great PG-13 Tom Holland movie as part of that transition, that was kind of my expectation going in. It was one of those great movies that we could kind of get into and say, hey, here's a live action film that's not a superhero movie. Maybe you're going to like, whodunit, not whodunits, but go find it, scavenger hunt, treasure hunting movies. Maybe this is something that could be another thing that's on your adventure radar. And that's what I expected going in. And it kind of paid off on those things, I think.
All right. And Pete.
Yeah, I'm right with JJ on that. I love treasure hunting movies. Like, I love them. I don't know if it started with my love of Raiders, like just the whole idea of following clues across a map with Monopoly planes that fly around and show you where you're going. Like, I'm totally in. Like, I loved the Tomb Raider movies. I mean, all of them. I love National Treasure. I love like all of those movies. Like, I just have a great time looking for treasure. So my expectation for this movie, the people who made the movie had me provoked that it might actually be a good movie, but I already expected to like it, even if it wasn't a good movie. So, so I'm with JJ. I did play the first game. I'm not a PlayStation guy, and so I was at a friend's house and I played probably 3 or 4 hours of the first game. I really like this character. I have a great time with the character.
You really like that friend.
Yeah.
3 or 4 hours of a game in someone's house.
Yes. Who would invite me to do that? Like, I don't know. He wasn't even there. And I made sure to pick up the glass too after the window's broken.
While sitting with the PlayStation.
Yeah. No. And so like I already like had an affinity for the character, but I didn't play all 4 games. I just know I like it. I did tonight watch the 2018 fan film with Stephen Lang and Nathan Fillion playing the Drake character. I really like that. So I'm a fan already, not a rabid Reddit fan, but I love this stuff, and I was already excited for the movie.
All right. Well, I will be the definitely different take on this as far as the expectations going in. I saw a trailer for the movie and thought, wow, that looks cool. We get to see the continuing adventures of Spider-Man. And
You are
then
so
I just
one-track minded.
exactly, yeah. So that's what I saw, and then I, it looked like an entertaining big action movie. Being one that likes to, I like to see trailers, but try to see as few as possible so I'm not spoiled from the movie. I didn't see much else beyond that. And then a week before actually seeing the movie, I found out that it was based on a video game. And that brought my expectations down.
Oh,
and so I did not know. Yes, I did not know that this was a video game, and that's kind of where the rock apparently that I've been living under. Because over the past week or so, it does seem to be that apparently I'm the one.
You are the one. There is no way we can't even hide that. That is a shame that you now have outed yourself, and you have to live with it. And I'm sorry.
Wait, I don't know. I'm proud.
Wait, but why did it bring your expectations down? I think that's...
Is it because of Doom?
Hitman?
It's because of every movie I've ever seen based on a video game. I don't think there are some that let's put it this way. When I think of movies based on video games, for the most part, and I'm not before up to this one, my thoughts of most of them were, okay, I can tolerate watching some of these, but I typically just don't like them. And there's reasons for that, which we can definitely get into as far as what that is and kind of where this movie I think does some things that are similar to that as well. But just the way video game movies are structured, I find that it's just not how I get down.
All right.
So that brought my expectations down a bit, but it still looked like a fun action movie. So I was still expecting to like it.
So you can't think of any video game movies that you like? Any of them?
Oh, that sounds like a test. It sounds like you're testing there, Pete. Is there one in particular you're thinking of?
Absolutely there is, and it's Super Mario Brothers. No,
wait.
I legitimately wonder about this because I'll just say I'm a fan of Resident Evil, but it also checks a lot of boxes for me because I did play the games. I really like the games, and it's like rabid zombie creature disease film. Like, of course, or like, absolutely, I'm going to be in on that property. So even as they got dumber, and I haven't seen the most recent one, but even as they got dumber, I was already in. So I'm asking, like, legitimately, there have been a ton of them. Are there any that you can think of
that I really like?
This is why I think this is a really interesting question, because honestly, we have the two-way street here that we're going. We have this, video game going to movie. Famously, video games that were originally movies are actually terrible video games too.
Yes.
Very rarely do they make good video games from movies as well. So I think this is a really interesting question. If you can think of a great movie that came from a video game, that's an interesting property. I think the same goes in reverse. For some reason, why do the media not transfer well? I actually liked the World of Warcraft movie.
Oh,
I think that was a far superior movie than most game movies that I see.
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of animated and stuff. It's animated, so it's not the same kind of thing.
There was more to that movie, though.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
Well, that movie I didn't see, so I have to check it out. But in answer to your question, Pete, pretty much no. There was one of the Hitman movies that I kind of liked.
Agent 47.
That I thought was okay. Yes, I think it was Agent 40. It was the second one. So I think it was Agent 47. Yep. That one was okay. I didn't like the Tomb Raiders. I didn't like Mario Brothers. Didn't like Double Dragon.
Assassin's Creed.
Go back. None of the Mortal Kombats. No. Assassin's Creed, man, I was so disappointed with that movie. I was so in.
It could. That's like totally snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Like there was no reason.
It really is.
Such awesome property.
What about you're right, because that is one where I felt very set up for it. I was like, you got assassins, you got killing, you got action. I was ready, and then it didn't work for me.
Well, of course, Doom. The Rock was in Doom, and they went famously all in on the first-person shooter cam, and that I didn't care for Doom, but at least he had redemption film in Rampage. What did you think about Rampage? Are you a big Rampage fan?
Oh, is Rampage based on a video game?
Oh, you not know Rampage the video game?
No, man. I did not know Rampage is based on a video game.
That is classic arcade tabletop.
If you can't tell, I don't play a lot of video games.
What is it? You got to stand sideways and you got to go into a thing, pull a person out of a building and eat it. Yeah.
Well, there you go. You may have found the one in that Rampage. While it is not not a good enough movie that I would ever recommend. I really did enjoy watching Rampage. Rampage was fun.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that was lots of fun. But it also had the Rock.
We also, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog. I haven't seen Sonic. I did see Detective Pikachu. We did that on the film board, and
yes, we did.
I'm a Pokemon fan, so I actually liked Detective Pikachu. I thought that was fun. I have not seen Welcome to Raccoon City yet, but just before we dig into the real meat of this, I just have to say out loud, rapid fire this list. Crossfire, Five Nights at Freddy's, although really Nicolas Cage was already in that in Willy's Wonderland. Gears of War, Ghosts of Tsushima, Just Cause, Just Dance, Mega Man, Minecraft, Metal Gear Solid, Mortal Kombat, Portal, Rabbids, Space Invaders, Tomb Raider, Obsidian, Saints Row, Yakuza, and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, all to be released coming soon. They're on deck.
Oh, I was confused. I wish you would have prefaced that list because I was like, I never saw Mega Man. Like, okay, that makes complete sense. I was like, that didn't exist as a movie yet.
That means, so they're making Mortal Kombat 2.
Yeah,
these are all untitled films right now that are in production that are from games. Right. So yes, it is going to be another Mortal Kombat, but there have been other Mortal Kombats. This is Mortal Kombat 2 of this generation of Mortal Kombat films.
Exactly. Yeah, the old one had Christopher Lambert in it, who's my favorite B-movie actor of all time.
Yes.
And he was cast well in his role in the original Mortal Kombat.
Yes,
that was great.
Yeah. So why don't we just jump into I'll just do a quick overview of this story, at least how it is set up. And this story starts with where we meet Nathan Drake and his brother Sam. They are young teenagers at the beginning, and they seem to be history buffs who like to treasure hunt / steal things. So through the initial event that they show us at the beginning of the film, they get caught trying to steal a map. Then they are separated late in their adolescence because it looks like so Sam is about 17 and Nate seems to be around 13 or 14, and they both live in an orphanage. They are separated, and then the movie cuts to 10 years later. And we now meet Nathan, who's living his life as a bartender, pickpocket, with a heart of gold. So one day he is visited by Victor Sully Sullivan and offered the opportunity to go on an amazing adventure and find the lost treasure amassed by Ferdinand Magellan. And it was lost 500 years ago. And go. And that's pretty much where we set up.
Go.
So that's pretty much and go. That's kind of that's really the high end overview of the story.
I'll go on that, Chase.
If you are like me, you have been in one too many conversations with your friends about a movie where you want to discuss the good, the bad, the hidden meanings found in specific scenes, and the beauty of the cinematography. And right after you complete your first point, your friend pauses and politely says to you, I don't know about any of that, but I just liked it. And that response, I think we all know, just ends the conversation before it truly begins. However, my dear listener, if you want to find a great place to have those conversations with others who also like to discuss a movie's meaning, how it's made, and know that when you are talking about an Easter egg, it rarely involves a bunny. Join our free online community on the True Story FM Discord server at thenextreel.com/Discord. And if you like what we're doing here with the True Story family of podcasts, why not become a supporting member? Visit thenextreel.com/membership to learn about the benefits like members-only Discord channels, show live streams, cool stickers, and more. I guess first and foremost, especially since you guys are larger fans of the video game than I am, JJ. So then, what did you think about how they translated the relationship of those two characters from the video game to the screen?
Well, I'm not really familiar with the way that they existed in the video game. I can talk about it as in the movie, though. I don't feel like they ever necessarily had a chemistry other than the way that the characters were meant to play off each other. The banter was evident. You could see the sort of script and what they were trying to do between the two of them. I don't know that I buy a whole lot of Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland and their love for one another, but I kind of feel that way about Mark Wahlberg with most people. I think that's kind of how he comes off on screen. It's always Mark and whoever's with him, which I think, I mean, that didn't bother me in this film, though, because I was so happy to watch. I know what I'm going to get with Mark Wahlberg, and I know what I'm going to get with Tom Holland. So that was all fine for me. I didn't necessarily think that they connected. I didn't ever really believe the sort of trust or distrust relationship that they had there. It just always felt like the script to me. But again, because of what I was coming to the movie with, that didn't bother me. Their relationship was who they were as characters, and that was all I got from what I saw on screen.
I wanted more, but I think you're right. Like, this scene is an example of the movie writ large. Like, I could see the script. I could see the script. I never really felt like I was able to let go of that. I like what they were trying to communicate. One, the sleight of hand bits, the fact that Tom Holland is such a great pickpocket. I feel like that was handy, but he's also Tom Cruise in Cocktail. Like, they were trying to shove an awful lot of like character sort of tics and behavior and traits in a very short amount of time. And I don't know that they necessarily, like, they could have just leaned on one. Like, if he's a great pickpocket, fine. I just never felt like that was a motivated trait. Like, he didn't really have a need for doing the things that he was doing, stealing the bracelet. Like, I just never felt like that was earned. And I'm 100% with you. I think Mark Wahlberg cursed his career when he did the Saturday Night Live goat sketch, because I cannot watch him and not expect "say hello to your mother" for me. Like, I can't watch a movie. He's just like, he's a lampoon of himself. And so I had a hard time taking him seriously. I recognize that's me, but as a result, I never got any sense of like Sully Drake chemistry through the entire film. Maybe to the post credits scene. Like, maybe I would give a little bit of grace there, but
but even then, I mean, we're jumping way ahead. But even then, the gag of the the puberty thing. I mean, you still see the script.
You see the script.
I mean, like, it's still just like, here are the jokes on the page.
Yep.
And I'll go back to what I said when I was introducing the show. A really good movie to get my kids to this kind of humor and this kind of like jab stuff, because they don't see that often. So this is great because it's new for them. But if you've seen a lot of this, it's going to feel really sort of like this is what we're used to.
Yeah, I agree. And they took that. So you have the initial salvo and the initial recruitment. And so the other part of which is really, I consider parts 1 and 1A of the main big piece, is the recruitment of Nathan by Sully, and then they go to steal the key from the auction. And now this sequence, I think, gives you some little action beats, a couple of unbelievable sights of Tom Holland jumping off of a balcony and holding on to light bulbs.
Yes.
Which somehow support his weight.
Do you want those light bulbs everywhere? That was amazing.
Yes, they A, support his weight, and B, don't shatter in his hand when he's clearly gripping them, hanging on, because that's a long fall, and that's going to hurt a lot. And so with that piece, and this is really just, I think all of this together was kind of the quick setup of who the main characters are. So your first introduction to Antonio Banderas, who's chewing up scenery in this movie, as the bad guy, Santiago Moncada, or is he the bad guy? You also are introduced to Braddock, whose relationship with Sully is a little bit murky, and you also show that their banter back and forth, and this is also where I sort of see the page as well, is that there's a lot of mistrust of each other, and I think it's really mostly a one-way street at this point, because Sully is really just about the money and getting the money, whereas Nathan seems to be much more about the adventure and wanting to, let's go find the treasure hunt. Let's do this as a team because this will be fun. And so in this first sequence with the auction, so Pete, did you find that they were able to do a good job of setting up, where should your loyalties as a viewer lie? Who should you root for? Who should you root against? Do you think that this was done well here?
Well, I want to ask a clarifying question, though, because did you not get, Ocean, the connection to Tom Holland, to Drake wanting to know, like, his motivation being driven by not knowing anything about his brother? Like, that felt like a strong motivation to me that they were trying to get me to really buy into, that, Sully was really dangling that out, like that he knew his brother, and that was a strong motivation enough. Was that enough to make Drake, at this young Drake, want to join the cause with Sully? Does that make sense?
Well, I don't think that was enough, but I will say that I think that if you take the intro scene where Sam, Nate's brother,
right,
kind of sets him on the path, like gives him this sort of impetus to say, it's in our blood. This is what we do. It's lost. It's not gone. Right. All of these tenets of who they are. We are descendants of Sir Francis Drake. We are pirates. This is everything he gets into. So ultimately, whether or not, I agree with the mystery of Sam's disappearance is a motivating factor here. But I think even more so than that is Nate's looking to live out the legacy that he was taught by his brother. And now this is the greatest opportunity he's ever been offered for that, I guess, is the way that I would look at it. That's the biggest thing that drew him to the quest in my mind.
Man, I think it's telling that I am so on the fence about that I feel like neither was strong enough for me to understand this. And I felt like, I probably...
You wanted to watch Cocktail, actually, is what you're saying.
I did. I actually switched. I actually was watching Cocktail on my phone in the theater, like when I brought that up. So I don't know that it was necessarily strong enough. But I have to say as a caveat, and I'm sure I'm going to say this throughout, I love watching Tom Holland in action sequences. He is
Me too.
Effortless, and it feels like his bones are like bird bones. They're hollow.
Right.
He has a way of carrying his body. In this fight, with the Lightroom, he does this thing on the balcony railing where he punches a guy and then gets on his butt on the railing of the third story balcony and twists around with his feet in a spin that's so perfectly balanced, and then comes out and punches another guy. And I've been thinking about that all weekend. Like, that's a cool move. Like, everything he does is a cool move. So, that buys me a lot of credit to just not even think about the fact that this is kind of a stupid thing. Like, they are asking me to buy a lot of emotional weight into this sequence and their future relationship. And I know it's going to be twisty with betrayal. Thank God he's so physically charismatic, because this movie doesn't really work without him.
100%. I agree with that. I mean, there's really not a whole lot that's special about this movie, except for the fun that you find in the people or the lightheartedness that's there. And I think, we brought up Red Notice before. I think that's a lot like that too. I think we're getting these movies right now, and I felt the exact same way about Red Notice. And I actually liked this better than Red Notice.
Oh, yeah. And I liked Red Notice.
Okay.
Oh, that's shots fired for Ocean.
Red Notice, Red Notice has a huge heaping of The Rock and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot all together in this wonderful
Give us the Tom Holland and The Rock movie. Right?
I mean,
that's what we need to see. I'd see that movie.
Well, yeah, I'll give you that movie, but that's not what has happened here. I mean, even if you like Tom Holland and put him up against any one of those, there's no one else on this movie that I think is the second. Like, there's no one else with the chemistry of Ryan Reynolds or Gal Gadot or The Rock. So Tom Holland can be in that conversation, but after him, it's a big drop off from this movie. But that aside, though, from this movie, I understand with the action sequences at the beginning and all that, but I found that it seems to be a missing point of it at this point in this early stage of really being able to set up the stakes, so we can really kind of understand. They've set up, in a sense, an opposition to the goal of finding the treasure. They don't explain why until a bit later, but having set up this opposition, it felt to me like they just had to have someone there. So it felt very paint by numbers, insert person X, but not a real reason of not only that they were trying to stop them, or were they just trying to be competitors? It seems like they were like, is this a offense defense situation where we're trying to stop you from finding the treasure, or is it just we're just racing?
Yeah.
And it was a little bit confusing in the tone of, well, which is it we're doing here? And so, and I feel that the movie went back and forth. And in this first piece, it seemed to go both directions. It seemed to be that Santiago was racing, whereas Braddock was trying to stop them.
I think it was clumsy. I think the whole thing was clumsy,
totally clumsy,
getting us into the narrative. And I think that is ultimately what's going to doom this movie and make it forgettable. It's like flashy. It'll do very well. There will be sequels, but in terms of what actually happened, you'll lose track of that pretty quickly.
You know what that reminded me of in this movie? It reminded me of Ready Player One. It reminded me of like Banderas as the big bad, Braddock as the female assassin, like, and the bungling of the twisting and the turning. It was fine, but it wasn't satisfying in any way.
Well, and I think to Ocean's point, like, there's so much hue and cry over like Save the Cat and the Save the Cat model of templated screenplay writing, right? Like, this is why we get so many movies that have like beat for beat, page for page on the script, the same movie. This feels like a Save the Cat movie when you throw in a bunch of whodunit and go find it kind of tropes. And I'm just like, it doesn't work. It shows no, like, this scene in particular as an action beat. It is fun to look at. It's fireworks, but there's no substance. There's like no purpose to it. And the final sort of betrayal that Mark Wahlberg leaves Tom Holland not to get caught. Don't get caught, kid. Don't get caught. It's like nonsense. And then get in the car. Well, you had to be tested. You passed your test. Like, I just, I know what they want me to think. I think they want me to think, oh, he's an unreliable mentor. And that's going to make for an interesting character, like, pairing. But it's not interesting. They didn't pull it off. Like, performatively, they did not pull it off. Wahlberg didn't pull it off. So I struggle with that.
Also, Wahlberg got to the car second, which then implies that obviously going the roundabout way that Nathan went gets you to the car faster,
right?
For reasons. All right. So since they of course then are able to steal the key, and now they are going to travel to Barcelona to meet Chloe, who, unbeknownst to Nathan, has the second key that is required to find the treasure. And so when they go, they meet. It's again a lot of, which happens in a lot of beats of this movie, of these characters not necessarily trusting each other. What I would argue was it was somewhat fun to watch, but forgettable foot chase scene after Sophia pickpockets Nathan, takes the key, and they have to go get the two keys. And so then they go through.
Did you know that all treasure hunters are pickpockets?
Everybody
in this universe, they are.
They sure are. Do not,
exactly,
every pant is a zipper pant pocket.
I will pick your pocket if you get too close to me.
I actually have little padlocks on all of my pants.
Yeah. Well, but to be fair, Chloe notched it up a level. She picked out of a backpack.
Yeah, she's good.
So that's usually, those are bigger, louder zippers, to get
with a flap and a hook.
God, while we're watching them on camera, there was no. What does she have a prehensile tail that we couldn't see? How the hell did she do that? It was nonsense.
Okay, and then everything about that scene, like the foot chase, it's never ending. It makes very little sense. It has no actual movement to it. It's just two figures moving in space, never gaining on one another. And then the ultimate thing that really bothers me about the ending part of that scene is then she finally does get away and into a car, and they decide that we actually don't have to chase her. She needs us. So that entire scene is completely worthless. It was just for the setup of the action that wasn't very good action in the first place.
I don't think it was worthless. I would like to posit that entire scene was actually Tom Holland's audition tape to play the prequel young Ethan Hunt in some future, because he runs like Tom Cruise. He runs like a young Tom Cruise freight train, and I'm here for it. So
it looks good. I didn't say it didn't look good, but film-wise, it's completely valueless.
It's totally valueless.
Other than for Tom Holland's career.
But that's why we go to these movies, is because they look good, right? It's fun. I didn't like the kind of vaudeville sort of end where he falls into the pool and Well,
you got to give her a chance to get away. And also, I do appreciate that reading of it, Pete. But the character of Ethan Hunt is coming from Tom Cruise's Cold Dead Hand. That's the only way.
And unfortunately, Tom Holland is
going
going for a part from an actor who does not
that's
age.
the only way anyone else is getting
right.
it. So now that we've been introduced to Sophia, and this is
to Chloe.
Really
Sophia's the actress.
Sorry.
But yeah,
Sorry.
Chloe's the
right.
character.
So Sophia, thank you very much. So now we've been introduced to Chloe. And here's the piece that where I felt, at least on the first watching, that was going to be the meat of the movie, where now they've got the 2 keys and they're now going to Barcelona, and then they're going to go do the treasure hunting. They have to figure out the different keys, where they go, and start working through different really traps to try to ultimately find this treasure. And so I think that there's 2 parts of this that I wanted to touch on and discuss. One is the setup. Did you feel that there was enough of the different trappings and keys that they had to go through? The little mines they had to go through, and then with the water hazard going through the club and all that. And then 2, the payoff, which we can discuss after that, because the payoff for me was kind of a down point for me. I did like that it seemed to be that the puzzle makers were just trying to put together a theme of, hey, if you want to get this treasure, people will have to work together. But do you think was a good execution of this? How did this hold up to your, because I always equate everything to Indiana Jones, and we're going through things with that, and how or even National Treasure. So Pete, how did you feel that the mechanics of what they put together on the screen, like how did that move you?
For me, I liked it, and I'll tell you why. Because this was not just living up to the expectation of other movies that have come before it, but it's living up to the game. And the game mechanic, the way Sully and Drake interact in the game is exactly this. This whole middle beat was the game. I am trapped in a thing and I can't do that thing until you go do that thing over there. Like, I'm going to drown if you don't open that other key. And we're going to introduce some other fight mechanics in there too. But mostly it's if this, then that, and not before this. And I thought that was a great homage to the game. How does it work as in the movie standalone if you didn't play the game? I still thought it was kind of fun. I enjoy the intensity of it, and the almost drowning is always a thing that's going to get me. Don't care for it. Nice little play against those anxieties. So that part was fine. The fact that it was in it wasn't a Subway. What was it? Was it a Subway that they were fighting in? The sandwich shop? Up at the top.
Oh, yes, it was a Papa John's.
It was a Papa John's. It was a Papa John's. They're having this fight in Barcelona.
Papa John's in Barcelona?
Papa John's in Barcelona, and this monument to antiquity is behind glass in a mall Papa John's. I thought was really
bulletproof glass.
Bulletproof glass.
Right.
That was fun. So, given that it is such a good homage to the game, I am interested to see how you guys felt about it.
I love that idea, and I didn't know that. So that's great. And I love that they're finding a way to connect with people who get the game like that. What it reminded me most of was the Da Vinci Code, in the way that ultimately all of and not just in this set piece, but all of the puzzles that were led to be found are pretty much found rapidly. If you've read the Dan Brown books and and the movie is not exactly the same as the books, but it's this kind of thing of there's a bunch of puzzles, we're going to get them and we're going to solve them within a page or 2 so that we can keep the momentum of the thing going. And I really felt that way in this story as well, that ultimately the only time that they ever triggered a trap was on the initial turn of the key. Otherwise, I guess Nate Drake did walk to a different place too. Well, but that was actually, they needed to do that, which I think is interesting. That wasn't a false thing. They actually needed to do that to get to the next step. So that was actually part of the solving of the puzzle, which I think is interesting. But that's what it reminded me a lot of. That really what they were trying to keep in this film, how the way that I felt, was forward momentum and to keep you moving along, which again is a great film for a 10 and 12-year-old.
Yeah, it's practically on rails.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, and so then keeping along with that theme, so if you like everything that all of the setup to it, then so JJ, what did you think about at the end of the rainbow? It's just a map in 8 foot vases, effectively, right? That all of that was to just get to the map.
Well,
so did you? I guess I'm curious. Did you feel that was a payoff? Did you feel that was a letdown? Were you kind of this similar, like, so I'll just, put my little thumb on the scale as well with that, where it's like, well, so the implication for me that when it became a map, it gave me a second to think. And that in this movie for me was problematic. Yep. When I had a second to think, I realized, the brother Sam had already been here.
Good point.
Are they trying to say that Sam just got there and then either couldn't figure this stuff out or they didn't have the key, and Sam got there and said, "Oh, hey, this needs keys," and then they went back
he spent 3 weeks in there super gluing all the faces back together because he
filling
already
them up with salt
and putting the map back.
Yeah.
Well, that's problem two, which you're jumping ahead of. Yes, because they do later on imply that Sam knew about this map that was in there, which how? Like, how would you know that it was there? So exactly. So when it's revealed that it is a map, is that I guess, yeah. So JJ, did you have a feeling of, it's just a map, or, hey, now we're getting to go to part 2 of this treasure hunt?
I'm so glad that you thought of all that stuff, because that is such a great thought, and it makes no sense for the ultimate telling of the thing. It didn't bother me. What it felt like was par for the course, really, of what we were going. Like, ultimately, I figured that this ride was going to go on for a long time, and never really knew when we were going to actually get to the thing that was the end thing that we were supposed to be getting. And that really felt like what was happening here. I really didn't think the gold was going to be in those urns, because there had to be more to it, right? I think what I find interesting is that the betrayal keeps happening, right? And that no one really learns from the betrayal throughout the film. And I wonder, I should ask Pete, is that common in the game as well, that you have to trust people and then have them betray you as well as you go?
I don't remember it well enough to be able to tell you that. But I do think it was interesting, like that often those betrayals are their pattern recognition, right? Like, you can get a sense for when you're going to be betrayed because of how the character has behaved in the past. And in this one, it's such an intermittent reinforcement. Sometimes they do really good things. And for some people, I can imagine watching that and being like, wow, that makes the betrayal even worse, because they really did invest in doing the right thing to get the next thing, to go to the next step. And that was very positive. But they lay it on so thick with so many characters that by the end, I'm like, you obviously can't trust anybody. And that has devalued the experience.
So why, and totally agree with you, why would Chloe betray them right there? Right? Why would she choose that? I've just been given the map.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that now I can do this on my own. Why? Why would I choose? Like, this man literally just saved my life from drowning. Yeah. But now I've got the map. I'm going to do the rest by myself.
Well,
that makes little sense.
Because what we find out later is that, right, she's already been hired by Moncada, and so like all I think my hunch was that just she wanted to trap them down there so that they weren't chasing her, and so there was. But I thought the same thing. Why don't you just go up to Papa John's and get a pizza and then talk this out? Like, why underground? Right? Like,
garlic
why
saves
underground?
all. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Well, and also too even that piece of it, the hiring of them that Santiago had hired both of the Braddock and Chloe to then, find / get the treasure. It also belies that which is another beat of. So this part of the movie for me slowed down a bit, and this is where I ended up doing too much thinking, I'll admit. But there was also another beat of where I started realizing, so were Nathan and Sully the only two people that didn't know this was a map? Because the way they were behaving the whole time, Nathan and Sully were behaving as if we're about to find the gold. Here is the gold.
Everybody's
but all of the other characters seem to react like, no, I expected it to be a map.
Yeah,
that came back, and so I'm
fuel up the jet.
That to me was another piece.
Found the map.
Exactly. Right. It's on the map. We're going here. Let's just go. I felt the betrayal was happening just for the betrayal, right? So once they find the map, inside of that, which is I think somewhat of a testament to how maybe poorly written the character of Santiago is that we're not really talking about him that much. Because in between the map and getting on the airplane, because the airplane that sequence is really great. Between that on the airplane, he kills his father, sets up a whole troop of people to get on a plane to go somewhere. Did I miss something? Did they ever say where they were actually going? I mean, they end up in the Philippines, but that isn't where they were originally going.
Oh, I thought that's where they were going, and they were naming like small places in and around it, like for islands.
Okay.
To drop their
goods. So they may. Okay, so then if that's where they're originally going, then I just missed that piece of it. But that that he kills his father, and then he gets betrayed by Braddock for reasons.
That is a huge issue for me. Like, what was her purpose? What was her motivation? Was it just villainy? Because if that's the case, that's not enough.
Well, I'll give you what I think as the devil's advocate thing. I don't agree with this, but what I think they're trying to say is that she is a treasure hunter just like Sully and needed funding to fund her treasure hunting. So she used the Mercado funding to get her this far. And so then once she gets to the place where it's like, okay, now we're going to parachute in and get the thing. I want to take care of the guy. I've killed the dad, so now I can kill this guy, and I have direct access to the treasure that I always wanted. Because
Okay, so now we have Jones, Belloc, and the Nazis all accounted for in this movie.
There you go. Yeah, exactly right.
Well, but I was also surprised that his henchmen effectively just turned on him on a dime as well. Because
they order 66 of them.
Yes. Right, exactly. They ordered 66 of them and did it in a way where, because my thought was they were only there for the money, right? His Santiago's men are there because he's paying them the money. Braddock doesn't have any money, so like why? They're like, well, she's gonna.
Money in this movie is a very conceptual thing because when you think about the motivation of Santiago to get this fortune, that it was clear that his family is extremely wealthy without the fortune. And if he just would have been a good guy to his dad through his life, his dad maybe wouldn't have given away the fortune for the other fortune. I mean, like, it's so confusing.
So many fortunes.
They're only in it for the money, but there's money here, there's money there. Like, choose the money. There's no more money or less money. We have a bunch of gold. I have a bunch of gold in a backpack, but then I'm going to have a bunch of gold in my pockets. And that gold is enough gold. That gold is enough gold to get me through without the gold that I had in my backpack. That was, it's such a conceptual thing that you can't, there's no way to use money as a motivation for anything here. You have to take the concept of money out of it, and all of the other motivations can be the only motivations here because money is everywhere seemingly in this film.
I guess I was ascribing that motivation to Santiago's henchmen, not necessarily Santiago himself. I felt that he was more the rich kid that needed something to do. However, I do agree with his point about the father did not have the right to give the money away.
Sure. Because
the father didn't earn it. Right? When it was earned 500 years ago and handed down to you, you hand it down unless you're the last of the line.
But he's the CEO. Maybe he's, he did not have the right. Sure. I agree with that. But I think the father had enough thing there too. It's so confusing.
I was pro patricide in this movie.
There you go.
Yes. I was like, yes, you claim what's yours, Santiago.
That character had probably the only characters that had less plot armor than him were the mercenaries, the henchmen. So they get tossed off the plane.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm gonna table this for right now, but just know we are coming back to one of my central production design problems, which is wet pants. So just hang on to that. This is a teaser.
Pants.
We're going to talk about
wet pants. All right.
That's a fun couple words to say. I think we're going to need to say that 15 more times each.
We're going to come back to wet pants. Don't worry about it.
Right,
wet pants will be revealed.
What's next? Wet pants.
So then I guess also, well, maybe we can take a beat here to praise the production design of the airplane sequence. Right. It's where the movie opens, where he's passed out and he wakes up and he's attached to a cargo
net
box. Cargo net box. So cargo net. And so and that whole sequence of once you forgive the what I would argue absurdity of, they kill Santiago, they're then going to take Chloe and they want to kill her, but they just turn their back for a quick second so she can run away into the cargo lift and then hide in the car, and then they start throwing, and then of course Nathan and Sully are in the car, so they pop out, then they start letting the cargo stuff go out of the back of the airplane. I forgive all of that for that sequence and how that was put together and how beautiful it looked and how much it does, I think, go to your point as well, Pete, about how well Tom Holland moves and the jumping and, you know, going back and forth from each container to the next one, as implausible as it would be in order to go forward when you're on a plane flying that far the other direction. But, you know, I know.
You're thinking,
we'll just let that all go.
Too hard.
But it was a wonderful, great set piece. And so,
I forgive everything. Like, also narratively, like, it just worked. That's one of the template beats in the script that just works for me. Opening up on the ring floating upward, kind of jiggling in the wind and pulling back and realizing what's really happening. And of course, we know what's happening. If you saw the trailer, they reveal the whole set piece right in the trailer because it's worth it. It's a high value thing. Like, if the rest of this movie
mirrored from the game too. I mean, that's
not in anything that I played.
But
okay,
there are
I
thought that
games.
Was something famous in the game.
It probably is, but I didn't.
Sure.
Not that I saw. So
okay,
but I am not. I'm not the definitive end of Uncharted. So I just thought it was really cool. Even once I just had such fun watching him jump from thing to thing in midair, and when the car comes at him and he says, "Oh, come on," and gets hit again, like there's just like visual charisma on screen, and I was able to let go. There's enough of it that it didn't stop me to think, which was perfect.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah.
Of course, that sequence ends in the way that it does, where they get they end up on a box in the water, and then they find I guess a resort that was on the edge of the islands. But they find that resort and they come in, and then there was a cameo when they come onto the beach. Right, I could tell by other people in the audience's reaction of the people I saw it with. I was like, well, this means something. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know what. So did you already know that cameo was the voice actor from the game, or was that also something you had to Google afterwards, same as I did?
I had to Google it.
I did not.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So by saying you didn't have to Google it, was it that recognizable for you?
Yeah.
Or did you just know?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
The voice was?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and he's been around for a long time doing it. And so, like, there is enough press. When there was, a big release, I think when the last one was 16 or something, like his face was around. Like, you can associate him. So,
gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, that was Nolan North. But if we didn't mention the name.
You're right. Sorry, I did not give him credit. Yes, it was Nolan North. Yeah. So they did. Yeah. Okay, so then here there's
just watching your eyes, and I wonder if you need like a stunt podcasting host to step in, because are you going to be able to get through your frustrations on this scene?
So there's two big things that I have issues with on this, and I'll only talk about the first one, and you can stop there if there's something that I'm missing, but. Again, I think we did discuss the idea of the knowledge of the map and the fact that he then has this map, has both keys, and then figures out from the notes of his brother, who wrote in there that the keys are the compass to him. And then that's how he figured out that you put the keys in the map in a certain way, put them together a certain way, and then that points to where the treasure is. So my problems became manifold, where it was like, I was still stuck on, okay, so everybody else seems to know that it's a map. And not only that, but the brother who didn't even get the keys knew not only about the map, but knew about the keys and knew if you put them together, it would show you the location of it. And that to me seemed much more of we need to figure out a way to drive it forward. And I don't know why they felt the need to include the brother, because also my other problem with that became that it made me feel that now Nathan is not as smart, right? Because Nathan has all the tools. So to have him piece it together and figure it out, I think we can kind of go there. But to have it where he's just looking at something from his brother who had none of these items, is able to give him the salient clue to get it. It makes me think, well, really, you should have just abandoned all this and just gone and found his brother.
The only thing the only apology that I'll make for the film in this regard is that if you want, I agree with you 100% on this. And when you brought up the thing about the map, like, how did Sam know that it was there without him actually getting the map out of the urn? I think that's actually really intelligent. If you want to sort of compartmentalize the two characters and say that Sam is the researcher and that that Nate is the doer. Right. So he's the one that ends up with all of the tools, but potentially Sam was like doing the research, finding these things and studying from, some books or people that he shouldn't have been talking to or shouldn't have been looking at, and learning this information and getting all this here. And that he was trying to share this information with the belief that the quest was still possible. That's how you could maybe see that about Sam. But I think your points are very well taken. How could he do it without the tools? But if we look at that initial scene that we have with Sam, he was teaching his brother about all this kind of stuff. And I think it's consistent with that character if you want to make the movie apologize for that. And I'm not sure that I agree with it. I like your points better than the movie's points, but I think that's what they're trying to do here.
I think it was hard for me at this point not to just say almost out loud, the production design of the map key interface is ridiculous. Like, the keys have been stupid all along. Like, the way they don't... Did you notice how hard it was for our principal characters to fit them together? Like, they never really latch together. They just sort of slide together, and you have to hold them to get them in. And
they kind of do.
They kind of do, but not convincingly. Like, there was nothing satisfying about this. And how did he accidentally discover to take off one of the gems and find the thumbtack on the inside and to put down there? And that nobody knows what a compass is. Like, they kept using the word compass, but really it was more of a top, and like that, the little arms, like it was an erector set. It didn't do what they kept using words, and the production design never lined up with the words they were saying. And
it was a figurative compass. It will show
dumb.
You the way, but it has nothing to do with what a compass actually does.
It was a dumpus. It was so stupid. And so I couldn't, none of that was believable. And then he's able to use this to come up with longitude and latitude. I mean, come on. God, thank God he's just so fun to watch, because, man, this was a real low point.
Going from that point to the penultimate scene. And the penultimate scene is he devises the longitude latitude and finds and then goes and finds the ships in a cove. And so this is where... Okay, so
I'm so proud of them that they found the ships. That's great. You guys.
They did find the ships. And I'm sorry. I even went over that they Chloe at this point, you think Chloe and Nathan are together, and you think maybe they finally worked through their trust issues, but still Chloe decides to betray him one more time when she sees the fake longitude and latitude coordinates, easy for me to say, and then starts going off on her own, leaving him behind, and then he realizes, well, she's going off the wrong way, so I'm going to go find the ships. You know what? How about this, JJ? Why don't you just tell me, instead of me just, because my head was exploding with so many questions about them being in a cove. When you saw that he just dove under and was in a cove.
Well, I did recognize that he had wet pants. But other than that, I think it's pretty ridiculous that he needed to swim to find said cove. Yet there seemed to be an entrance that was readily accessible for anyone else who just happened to be coming by.
To be fair, they blew it up.
They what?
They blew it up. Oh, Braddock blew it up. But you're right. But the Sully just showed up on the ship.
Exactly. They just
he paratroopered in. I don't know where he
did not have to work. He didn't have to work to find it.
No.
Yeah.
But that's one of those
phone, right?
movies.
The phone tracking.
Yeah, he was tracking.
Like all the things.
Yeah. He fell into the hole. He was up above. That's one of those movie shorthands that I kind of forgive on movies like this, that once I have been with the audience avatar, our hero, Nathan Drake, and I have found the ship, it's fine that other people can find the ship. They've broken the seal, so
it's a painted target.
It's a painted target. That's exactly
everybody can find it now.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
500 years.
Yeah, that part was less of my concern, less of what was bothering me versus how they got there. When I was watching, as I was my filming of this movie, I was expecting, similar to what you saw with the big giant vases, I was expecting the gold to be in some containers of some kind. And yes, they were in containers, but they were still on the ships. And that was, for me as well, that was one of the things of where I had multiple problems with the ships because how did they get there? Because if he swam, then that means it implies that at some point the entrance had to be big enough for these massive ships to get into this cove. And then rock had to grow down over 500 years, and it has to be in a location where nobody goes for reasons. And that just the fact that they were there, that how they got there was, first off, that was just, that broke my brain. And so it took me a bit out of it because of that. And then when Braddock and everyone shows and they are just ready with helicopters.
Yeah.
Yep. They were already there. It got to be a bit too convenient for me in that it seemed to be that nothing that was going on was surprising anybody. It was as if the only person that was surprised was Nathan and me, the viewer. That everybody else already knew. Well, the ships will be in a cove that has an opening that you can only get to from the top, and you need to helicopter them down and out. And so I don't know that I don't know how much of this was either bothering me or if I felt just slightly insulted as a viewer of, oh, okay, so you're just going to throw these points out that clearly not only don't make sense to me as the viewer, but then seem to be everyone else, all the other characters seem to be acting as if, oh, of course, this is how it would be. I'm holding my breath for JJ to talk first.
Well, you're right. There's nothing real about this movie. I'll just say it like that. There is nothing real, and this is everything that you just listed is a whole lot of more not real.
In this movie, actually, climate change is making the oceans go down, and so what really happened is the ships were in the hole; they were over the hole in the cove, and then over 500 years, they were just anchored. And over 500 years, the ocean levels, as you know, in the Drake's Uncharted cinematic universe, the oceans recede. And they lowered onto the beach.
Got it.
So
all right.
That's settled science.
Of course it is. And so, honestly, there was, and for me, and this is what I want to make sure that my quibble is correctly understood. It's not, I am fine with movies having like fake crazy stuff. Trust me, I'm in for fake crazy stuff. It just felt to me that it wasn't holding true to its own narrative. It seemed to be that most of the other characters seem to accept that this was going to be this way, but they just kind of fake you out as the audience member or just Nathan, where it's now not that way. And so that was my main thing with the boats, and then with the ships. But then they give you a slight reward with a crazy sequence of helicopter boat fighting.
Yes. Can I ask one question, one like tying question, just to make sure I understood what they were doing with all the characters? Because I might have an Eternals problem with this scene, right?
Oh.
And it starts when he's with Chloe in the hotel. They Kumail Nanjiani'd her, right? She was an important part of getting to that point, and then they tricked her, gave her the wrong latitude, only to make her the brunt of a joke after the crazy airship fight. Look, she's still down. Snickers, Snickers. She's in her boat, in her speedboat, right? Did I miss something significant?
No.
Well, the betrayal there was her betraying them. Had she not taken those coordinates and left, she would have been there.
Right, but she still should be more important to the story.
This is very much like a Doyleist concern. They wrote her out of the story, and I liked her more than that. I liked Kumail Nanjiani in Eternals. I wanted to see him in the big fight at the end. I liked Chloe. I wanted her to have some role, and it was like they couldn't figure out what to do with her, so they gave her the longitude-latitude gambit, and she was gone. I think that was sloppy, clumsy.
Definitely.
Yes, I agree with that. And so then, but when I was bringing up earlier before that segue, JJ, about the helicopter boat fighting, were you did you not enjoy that piece of action?
Helicopters in movies. That was a lot of, I have a lot of experience in helicopters. I have a ridiculous amount of experience in helicopters. I've got more butt time in helicopters than most pilots do, and I will say helicopter scenes in movies are always ridiculous. This one may be the most ridiculous helicopter fighting scene ever. I mean, when the one I always refer to is in The Italian Job, when a helicopter is playing chicken with a car. Helicopters should not play chicken with anything, because any sort of foreign object damage to a helicopter, the helicopter gets ruined.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Hollywood has this mythos built around helicopters that's to say that they're somewhat threatening and that they're somewhat bulletproof, I guess, to this kind of thing. Everything that happened, first of all, the helicopters that they chose are very heavy-duty helicopters. They can lift huge amounts. I don't know that they could lift galleons, but the point being is, with them slamming into each other and this sort of thing, it is the most ridiculous, crazy non-helicopter world that we're watching there, and it boggles my mind. I'm just like, you have to sit back and immediately go,
they might as well have been spaceships.
They are spaceships for all intents and purposes. I mean, they really are. There's nothing that they do that resembles a helicopter,
right?
Except for what people believe helicopters do.
We have a mutual friend that JB who flew big helicopters in the military, and when I remember exchanging letters with him, like asking about his flight training, and he wrote me back. He says, "Well, he put me in helicopters. Here's what I've learned about helicopters, and this has stuck with me since for 25, 30 years. Is what I've learned about helicopters, Pete, is helicopters don't, by their nature, want to fly." And full stop. Like, that's the end. You can't do anything with a helicopter that is like this, that they don't want to fly. Not like a plane. If you stop propulsion on a plane, it'll glide. It wants to fly for a little while. Helicopters don't. They don't.
Autopilot? There's an autopilot button in a helicopter? Oh, if we were an expletive-laden podcast, would I be on a tear right now?
You would be unleashed.
What the heck are you thinking? Autopilot with the weight of a what? Just come on. Like, and there are a wealth of people around the world that are going to watch this and go, yeah, Mark Wahlberg, press a button. Everybody stand up. Nobody pay attention to flying the thing that doesn't want to fly, which is to go back to what you're saying, Pete.
Also, I would say, given all that, it was cool seeing the boats floating around. Right? It was still cool.
I would say I enjoyed the sequence. I thought it was fun watching it go through. They had the little 0G moment where they're coming up and over, and then the boat comes down, the ship comes down into the water, and then he pulls it back up for the helicopter.
They have to give the boat these great hero moments, like to that point, like that sequence where the boat hits the water and is being dragged through the water, and they have that low, wide angle on it as if it is just like its heyday, and the sails unfurl, and it was fun. It was beautiful. It was a work of art.
Right. It was.
It was also stupid. Those two things can coexist.
It was also ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. Those two things coexist. Honestly, for me, the big thing, I guess, just the last thing I'll say about that sequence was I didn't understand why Braddock decided to fight. Because those ships were worth more than the gold. And so when Nathan and Sully steal one, they have one, Braddock has one. They both have effectively 10 billion apiece. Right. And if you just take 2 seconds of calculation of what is it going to take for me to take this from them, I have to risk my 10 billion.
There you go. There you go. Talking about money again.
Exactly.
Too much,
talking about money.
There's money A, there's money B.
Too much.
Like, it just is money. There's no way to say this money's better than that money. We're just going to say money's money, and we're all going to fight about money. It's so weird in this movie. Like, they're all loaded, but they all want more because it's money. It's so confusing. You're totally right. There's no reason to really fight over it, but everybody wants what they want because it's money.
All right, fair enough.
So what about wet pants? No, I'm just kidding.
All right. You beat me to it.
This is a thing that actually I remember from both Tomb Raider and this video game, where the characters, when they have to swim a lot, and the characters in these properties, like, except for in Tomb Raider, like, there are the scuba diving levels where she's actually wearing a scuba diving outfit, but most of the time these characters are just wearing their adventure clothes, whether it's shorts or pants or short pants or capris, whatever, and then they go swimming. And what happens to you guys when you get in the pool or the water with your clothes on? and then you
weighed
come
down.
You come out of it. Right.
Ridiculously weighed down. Can only move bare. Like you feel like you're stuck to the things that you're wearing.
Yeah, right. And the pants, the wet pants,
are wet.
They get baggy.
Yes.
Right? They start to sag. You end up with the wet pants, soggy bottom problem. Well, the games are okay. They totally combat this because, Nathan Drake gets out of the water that he's been swimming in, and he still has pants that fit completely tight butt. They are awesome pants, impervious to wet pant. And he looks great. They carried that over to the movie, and I found it bothering me to no end. Every time Tom Holland gets out of the water, his pants are CG'd tight on his butt, and they fit him perfectly, right?
Are they CG'd tight on his butt?
No way he is not completely cleaned up digitally after he comes out of this thing. They don't look real. They look like they are form-fitting, not real pants. Now,
well, Tom Holland's beauty is a central focus of this film.
You are absolutely right. And I am in favor of the cleanup. Believe me, I'm okay with that. But when he starts pulling 80 pounds of gold also out of his cargo pants that he's been lugging up the chain to that helicopter, no, he had wet pant already, and now gold wet pant like a helicopter. That does not fly.
Exactly. So the pants of themselves be so heavy, and like that backpack full of gold that Sully climbs up on a flying rig.
How much does that weigh? It's like
200 pounds. 200 pounds.
300 pounds. What
Easily.
is it? Crazy.
Wet pants. Wet gold pants.
So you don't feel that they set that up in the early part of the movie with the training montage of Nathan in the bedroom, shirt off, just the little pole thing up there.
Now,
they set up the ability to climb up a rope with wet pants. And
how many times he did that thing where he does it in the movie where he has to run up the ship and grab on with two hands and do what is the move called where he's like deadlifting himself.
It's from Ninja Warrior. Like you do the big run up and grab at the cliff. It's called the high cliff, the cliff something.
I am okay with it. He looks
the crazy wall, the curve wall. The curve wall is in the American Ninja Warrior.
He's great. He does that stuff. I get it. Super strong bird bone individual, but wet gold pant does not fly.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess before we start winding this down, were there any other either acting performances or things with the cinematography direction that you guys particularly enjoyed you'd like to discuss?
Well, I feel like we need to talk at least about the writing and directing team. Part of the reason that my expectation was set higher than another movie of this kind, first treasure hunting movie, I'm already there. But the screenplay was written by Matt Holloway and Art Markham and Rafe Judkins. Now, Matt Holloway has written a whole bunch of things. The new Men in Black International. Also has written some Transformers stuff. Wrote the Transformers: The Last Night. Wrote Iron Man with Art Markham, the first Marvel movie. Big fan. Also is behind the screenplay of Kraven the Hunter, which is coming. Uh-oh. It's in pre-production right now, and wrote an early draft of Masters of the Universe. So that's Matt Holloway. Art Markham.
You mean the old Masters of the Universe?
No, there's an early script of a new movie of Masters of the Universe that's going to be made. And so he works a lot with Art Markham. And so Art Markham was also on Iron Man and Transformers and Men in Black and Uncharted and Kraven the Hunter. Rafe Judkins also on the writing team is behind. He's been a producer on shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Wheel of Time is a writer on Wheel of Time, currently on Amazon Prime, adaptation of the book series. Chuck, he was on he wrote 9 episodes of Chuck. I was a big fan of Chuck, watched every episode, thought it was a great show. So I already kind of had a high opinion of the people who were writing this thing in terms of their ability to write these kinds of adventure stories. Ruben Fleischer is a director, and Fleischer has done a lot of production work. And a lot of directory work. He has direction, 30 credits. He, in terms of his feature films, well, his first feature was Zombieland, right? His first feature in 2009 was Zombieland. He then did his second feature was Gangster Squad, which I thought was great. So right now we're 2 for 2. Then he does Venom, which was more of a mixed bag for a lot of people. I felt like we got what was on the tin, given the constraints of that character and what they chose to do with it. So yeah, I had fun. And then Zombieland Double Tap, which I did not care for, not one little bit. And now this, Uncharted. So for Ruben Fleischer, my experience with him has been very high and very low. Like there's very little right in between for me and Ruben Fleischer. But the rest of the team, I actually had some high hopes of what I was going to get out of this movie. The movie delivered exactly what again was on the tin. Like it's an adventure adaptation of a video game, an extraordinarily popular video game. I don't want to give them so much credit as saying they did the best with what they had to work with, because I don't think that's true. I think this movie is an example of the whole being less than the sum of its parts, even Mark Wahlberg. But I still had a really good time.
Fleischer's going to keep getting jobs. I mean, are there any more Disney rides that need to be made into movies? Because this is exactly like that.
You're absolutely right.
That's the thing. Like, it doesn't have a whole lot of meat to it, but it's a fun movie. It's fun. Exactly what he needs to do. And that list of movies that you talked about, I know there's hits and misses there, but I think he's going to keep getting gigs because these people are watching these movies.
Well, there's a recipe, right? And the recipe, if the recipe ends in, as you say, people watching these movies, we're going to get more of these movies.
Exactly.
Oh no, they clearly set up a sequel.
Oh yeah.
For it because and I was curious. Did anyone? So did either of you for a second believe that the brother was dead?
No.
Okay, that's saying the brother's dead. Okay, yeah. So because even when they first brought up the idea, I was like, well, how he can't be dead because he has to be in a sequel.
Yeah. The worst part of the plane sequence is when you stand next to a huge open door and say, "Did you kill my brother?" There's no reason to do that. Yeah. What are you going to do with that? How are you going to? Anyway, but I didn't think he was dead either.
Given that the high hopes and expectations you had of the writer and directors and actors and everyone involved in this, so the issues that we've discussed coming to this point, do you think it's more of the choices that were made in the writing room on the page? Do you think it's more of something with the direction could have been tweaked a little bit different, or do you think it truly is just a bunch of great tastes that do not taste great together?
Well, I think this movie is great tastes that don't always taste great together. I think the problem with being able to see the script on the screen as often as I felt that way in this movie is a problem of the script, right? We have too many performers on screen that we have way too long of a history of knowing that they can do really, really good work, right? We know they can do good work, even in movies that are like this, right? Like similar big budget, big smash 'em up movies, where I don't see the script written. I don't know if it is something coming from PlayStation Studios, just being a novice at delivering this kind of stuff. That is an awfully long logo reel in the beginning of this movie, the new PlayStation Studios logo. Good bully for them for getting into this business, but this first movie felt pretty transparent, and it might be growing pains of just a creative team that isn't gelling yet, because a lot of people are very capable in the leadership roles of the actual film. So I don't know, but I think it boils down to a script. I don't know. JJ, you agree?
It's a bad movie, but I liked it.
Yeah.
That's how I mean, quite honestly, it gave me, I'm really glad that we asked at the beginning of the show, what were you going here for? What did you expect for? I mean, my kids loved it and it was fun for them. Like it's not a good movie. All of the reasons that we've talked about, we've had a lot of fun actually talking about how things don't add up in this movie, but I liked it. It did it for me. I'm going to give it a low rating and a heart. That's how it's going to come off for me.
That was my son. So I don't know, Ocean, did you see it with the whole family? Did you take everybody?
My youngest didn't want to see it, so my oldest did. He saw it as well. Yes. Yeah.
And what did he think of it?
Yeah. Well, so I have a 16-year-old son now who basically discusses everything in terms of whether it is or is not chill. And that is basically the opinion you're going to get on everything. And so I asked, was this movie chill? And he said, this movie was not chill.
I need to be like chill translated. Is that good or not good?
Not good.
Usually, if it is chill, it's good, and if it's not chill, it's not as good. And that's usually what it is. But yeah, it's just the word chill. It's like you can ask how was insert anything here, Bishop.
Yeah.
Chill.
That apple was chill.
Wow.
That's it. Just chill, not chill. That's it. So yeah,
man of two words. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of what he.
I went to see it. This was actually interesting. I saw it alone because everybody's traveling right now. They're all out of town, and so I had to see it alone. And the theater was jammed. Like it was.
Yes. Yeah.
Uncomfortably, disquietingly packed. I was not expecting that. But everybody that I was around seemed to be having a really good time. Most of the theater stayed for the post-credits sequence. If you haven't seen it yet, there is, I don't know why you're listening all this way. There are two post-credit sequences, but one is like the mid-early credits and one is before the long roll. So, once you've seen two credit sequences, you can leave. My son asked, are we going to go again together? Like, should I see it? And I was like, what JJ said, I told him, I said, this was not a good movie. And I think you'd have a good time in the theater with it. Like, it's big enough that it's fun on the biggest of the big screen. So, I'm sticking with that.
So then does it mean that this movie, and I'll start with you, JJ. So did this movie, and I want to make sure, I think you said it, but I'm just going to say codify it for the record. Did this movie meet the expectations that you had going into it?
100%. Exactly. It was exactly what I thought it was. And I'm glad I bought the ticket because it was great for me and the boys to get out and go see something. Okay.
And Pete, for you to meet, exceed, or fall below the expectations you had going in?
Yeah, I think it met the expectations. It was an adaptation of a popular video game movie and a treasure hunting movie. And that's what I wanted, and that's exactly what I got. Except for I got this one with Spider-Man in it.
Yeehaw!
Exactly. Yes. For me, it did somewhat meet the expectations for me as well, especially since my expectations went down once I found out this was based on a video game. I did get to see the continuing adventures of Spider-Man. I did enjoy the action sequences, and the movie itself, I think that the pacings for me, I almost wanted it to be faster so I wouldn't have time to think.
Yeah, I get that.
And that would have helped me out a lot if it had been everything been moving at a breakneck pace, and then I wouldn't have been able to stop in real time and think through what I was watching.
I haven't read any other reviews of it yet, particularly reviews of people who love the game, but I'd be interested to know like how this met those expectations, especially because this is a hardcore prequel, right? This is not the character you get in the game. This is the character in the game 15 years earlier. And this is his first big adventure. So, when in the game, when we meet him, he is already uncovering like hidden ocean treasures. He's on an exhibition, like already, like we're in the middle of the story. And so I'd be interested. I feel like I do enjoy the experience of watching him kind of grow up through this adventure. You get to see some interesting things, like when he gets his iconic the necklace, and when he gets the shoulder holster that he puts on so dramatically. So all of those things I think are interesting, and I would watch more.
We will too.
Well, yes, you will definitely get more. We're on Letterboxd. True Story FM's family of film podcasts are all a part of the Next Reels HQ page. Letterboxd is a great way to track movies you see, write your own reviews, and be a part of a larger community of film lovers like yourself. Sign up for your own account today, and if you upgrade to a pro or a patron account, use the discount code NEXTREEL at checkout and save 20%. This works for renewals as well. Okay, JJ, so we'll start with you. So out of 5 stars and a heart, what letterbox rating would you give this movie?
Well, this is interesting because I think when we came to this one on our little calculator here, I think it was still set from way back when, possibly when we actually did Eternals, is the way it looked like to me. Because I'm giving this 2 stars, so on the bottom half of the rungs there. And I think I did that for Eternals too. But the main difference here is I didn't like Eternals, and I liked this movie. So this is a 2 and a heart.
Yeah, I'm right with JJ on this one too. This was like, for all of the reasons we discussed, I just, if I stop and think at all, there's a lot of stuff in here that's just pretty weak. But it looked great. The action sequences worked. The stunts worked for me. They were fun, fast, and also magic helicopters. So this was a 2-star narrative film, but it's a big, glowing, experiential heart.
All right. Well, looks like we are unanimous, gentlemen. I'm also 2 stars because I had a lot of quibbles with the movie, and I do. In this case, I think it's more of a small heart, but it's a heart in that I think this movie is something that is rewatchable and something that you can definitely enjoy. I also have children young enough that I do remember and think of things in terms of, would I show this to my kids and let them, watch it with them or anything like that? And I definitely would. And if it was on, if I was on my favorite streaming service and I had some time to kill, it definitely is something that you can watch for the spectacle of what it is. And so I think that I agree with both of you guys' rating, although my heart might be a little bit smaller, like the Grinch. Few sizes too small. But I'm with you there.
I will say, along the lines of magic helicopters, just as we're looking here, I looked up, I Googled the 2 words helicopter and autopilot. And the second listing here is, do helicopters have autopilots? Some do, with an exclamation point. So anyway.
Maybe this is the one.
I'm shocked, and it's probably out there, but I don't believe it for this particular sequence.
Well, that depends. Can the autopilot hover in the place, in place, so that way you can, fight and rescue and try to save your friend and everything while the helicopter stays where it is, holding up the $4 to $6 billion ship.
Exactly.
That's the real trick, because actually in those helicopters they don't calculate based on weight; they calculate based on value.
Right.
This can only hover in the low billion.
If you have, yes. Because then the helicopter says, I better do my job.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both very much for joining me tonight to talk about Uncharted. So, JJ, I know this is the host of Trailer Rewind. So you can give us a moment to tell us what else is going on with you in your True Story FM life.
Well, we're working on a new look and feel for Trailer Rewind coming up. It's going to have the real thing that we want to focus on is being recommenders for films. We want it for the world that's streaming out there. Trailer Rewind has always been the thing to go and look for movies that you probably didn't see in the theater that are available on your streaming services. So we want to get you more volume and more quality in what we're recommending to you. And so that's kind of what the plan is coming up. In the next couple months, you're going to start seeing some of those wild recommendations coming up from us in greater volume and greater frequency. So look for that very soon.
Sounds great. And Pete Wright, host of The Next Reel and boss of bosses. What's going on with you? And what's coming up next?
Well, I'll tell you, we're in the middle of our John Hurd series. And I'll tell you, we had a fantastic time with Chilly Scenes of Winter and Between the Lines. And this week, Chilly Scenes of Winter comes out to the public release, and Big. If you haven't seen Big in a while, it's a heartwarming treat of a film, and that's coming out next for members this week. So we're really loving the John Hurd stuff. He's been one of those classic faces for a very, very long time. And turns out, I told my mom, I said, we're doing John Hurd. She's like, now that man's a movie star. Like, I would not have said that, but mom's a fan, if you know what I mean.
Love it.
So, yeah.
All right, and we want to remind you again to please join our online community with fellow movie lovers. Learn more at thenextreel.com/Discord. And again, if you're not already a member, please consider supporting the show. To learn more, visit thenextreel.com/membership. Don't forget to do the stuff that you're supposed to do with your podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe, listen, and most importantly, share. Please let any of those movie lovers in your life know about the show. The best way we have to get more people listening is you. And coming up next month on the film board is The Batman.
The Riddler is asking for you.
The killer left this for the Batman. Why is he writing to you?
You came. I've been trying to reach you.
Riddler's latest. It's all about the Waynes. If we don't stand up, no one will.
You got a lot of cats.
I have a thing about strays. The bat and the cat. It's got a nice ring.
You a new friend of yours?
I'm not so sure. I'm just here to unmask the truth about this cesspool we call a city. You're part of this too.
Hands up! Stay still!
How am I a part of this? Oh, you're really not as smart as I thought you were. Bruce Wayne.
The Film Board is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Pete Wright. Music by King Ducky. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
Is that King Ducky?